Okay, welcome back everybody. We continue on page Membeis in chapter 33. 33 begins in 82. We actually went till 84, but we're going to start from Membeis on the bottom again in the original text. You can see the corresponding you can see this on the corresponding English text as well, the lessons in Tanya, and which is in the original text 3 lines before the bottom of page Membeis. And on this I will just add that we said these few lines, but again, just to begin with, to get the flow of things over here. So he says, "V'alzet tiknu." This was established to give a praise and a thanks to Hashem, l'shmei yisbarach, to Hashem's name, b'chol boker, every single morning, and to say, this would say we recite every morning in the Funfarnt, which is before we begin formally with the minyan begins formally with the Haidu or Bar Shamar. We say, fortunate is our lot, manoim geiraleinu, how sweet is our geirel, which is again also a lottery, our part, our share. Or chalkeinu would be our share, and geiraleinu our lot. Mayafi Yerushaseinu, how beautiful is our inheritance, this which we have inherited. End quote of this Ashenu. So what does it mean? What does it mean? So the Alter Rebbe points out over here, based on which he expanded on in this very chapter, that we indeed inherited something great. So on the outset, on the surface, one would suggest, what is Yerusha saying? What did we inherit? We inherited the Torah. We received the Torah, as it's called Yerusha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akilni b'dvarim. So the Torah is called a Yerusha. The whole rich the rich tradition, and starting from the Torah and the rich tradition, our forefathers, we come into a beautiful picture, and again, not but with our own effort and our own toil. This is all presented to us, and especially as the generations progress, the Yerusha just becomes bigger and grander in so many areas, with so much Torah and Tanaim, Bamiroim, tens of thousands of daily Yisro, which toiled in this great Torah, our Yerusha. And then as we come closer to Yemei Mashiach, the we have Reb Shimei Chai back as the Tana with Pnimius HaTorah, and then the Baal Shem Tov with Talmidav, and so on and so forth, and all the other daily Yisrael, which it only toiled in this very Yerusha, which made our Yerusha even greater. And so this is Bapash, is a simple idea. Mayafa, how great is our your lot, our share, our lot, our Yerusha, our inheritance. But the Alter Rebbe, it focuses when he speaks about Yerusha, he focuses on this which he's conveyed in this chapter, very 33rd chapter, that the Yerusha is the fact that with a little bit hisbeinenus, with a little bit meditation, with a little bit pondering, we notice that not only the Torah itself is given to us, and everything which came with the package of Torah, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu being our Avinu, Malkeinu, and Meishienu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu being the one who took us out of Mitzrayim, and so on, the whole package which we are born into, being the Am HaNivchar, the chosen nation, and so on and so forth. But what Alter Rebbe is pointing out over here, that it's more than that, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu exposing himself to us. And again, I would suggest everybody to see where how the Alter Rebbe entered into this hisbeinenus, which he begins the Peirik. This would be the Simchas HaNefesh, an inner joy and elation, an inner true joy and elation of the soul, pondering of this very reality of the Achdus Hashem, the true notion of Achdus Hashem, that Hashem is one, and that it's not only Hashem is one to the exclusion of two or three, but Hashem is one, meaning that it's everything is part of the Achdus Hashem. As we mentioned, the difference, we've mentioned this a number of times, but it encapsulates the message. So clearly it's not Keil Ha'olam, that Hashem, there is a world as a separate entity and God is in charge, or a God over this world, but Keil Eilam, the Eilam itself is part of the Keil, is an extension, is part of the Keil himself, it's all part of Hashem. So, which that tells us that the world, including myself and everything around me, is not a separate entity, it's part of the Achdus Hashem. And so, in essence, it's the Hashem is not only in charge of me from somewhere in His domain, but this is not only Hashem's domain, this is part of the godly reality. So that itself is such a great Yerusha, that which demonstrates such closeness, which points out the closeness, the absolute closeness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to all of creation, and in my Yizbeinus, to me myself. And he gives the example how great the elation and joy of somebody having the ability to host a king, a Melech Basar Adam, which comes and wants to live with him in his house, wants to stay over in his house once. He says, he lives with him in his house, and he's able to host him in many various different ways. How great the simcha, how great the joy, how uplifted is the spirit of especially a simple person or a lowly person when the king knocks on his door and he says, I'm here and here to stay. And how much greater the closeness of a Melech Malchem Lachem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who is on his own. He is the king of all kings. He is the Melech Malchem Lachem. He's not a particular king, he's the king of all kings. He is Hashem himself. And the difference is infinite, understandably. And in comparison to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we are all Shfal Anoshim. We're all simple, or even lower than that, and that's what it says. Mihu hazeh asher orav libi lageshes elai. The pasuk says, who is audacious to come close to me? Because the ein areich, the distance, the vast distance and proximity between a person, a bria, a part of creation, even a yid, in comparison to the Melech Malchem Lachem HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. And this great HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm part of you. I'm not only be able have the ability to host me, but I'm part of your life. You are part of me. And when we think about it in those terms, the simcha is there's no gvul, there's no borders, there's no end to the simcha. Obviously, it arouses Yiras Hashem. I'm always in the presence of God. I am part of God's manifestation. So it's always a state that the person gives the encouragement us to be careful in this, where we have to be careful in guarding the Torah. It may be mitzvah saseh, mitzvah leisaseh, but together with that, the yira, it naturally elicits within the yira true simcha, genuine simcha. Now, and El Rebbe says this is the Yerusha. This is the Yerusha which was given over to us. This is the inheritance which was given over to us, which we allude to when we say Mayavi Yerushaseinu. And Alter Rebbe is going to continue, but I will naturally point out here that I'm just giving over some general information of which is described in this chapter, which we learned of in this chapter 33, in which this is, I believe, the fourth class in 33 itself. In other words, we elaborated on this very idea, how the Alter Rebbe so brilliantly conveys this message of Hashem Echad in this particular style, in this fashion, with the message again of Keil Olam, not Keil Ha'olam, etc. And he gives two very important fundamental examples, mishalim, parables, metaphors to this, which one could have a comprehensive understanding of this message via these two examples which Alter Rebbe gives. So in the past three classes we expanded on this message with these two examples. So I more than again to get the total appreciation and clarity of this message, and to understand why this is such a great Yafi Yerushaseinu, and why it can cause true simcha. I more than encourage you to go to the previous classes. You can see it on this very site. Just put in the link box Tanya, or you can go to tanyaonline.com, which has this very classes hosted by the same hosts over here, and yet the advantage is that it has the text. You could follow easy along with the text. It's a website solely for this class, Tanya Online. And so again, tanyaonline.com. Additional to that, you have the all the previous classes in a very organized manner that you could tap into them and follow them accordingly, or tap into them in a very easy, accessible manner. But even the class itself, you could follow along. The advantage, as we mentioned many times, you could follow along with the text, and I more than invite you to have clarity in this, which we mentioned today, and we're continuing to learn today, is to tap into the last three classes of the 33rd chapter. And this very class usually goes up about within a few hours after it is on Kosher Tube, the formal host of this class, on that to TanyaOnline.com. So I again encourage you to we just to have the understanding of what the Alter Rebbe is getting, the message the Alter Rebbe is relating over here. So the Alter Rebbe says, "Mayafi Yerushaseinu." He says, "Kileimer K'meisha Adam Shesos v'Sameach b'Yerusha Shenaflu Leihein Atok Shalei Amal Bei." Just like man would rejoice and elate with a inheritance that fell to him, a great amount of money which he did not toil, which this is the notion of inheritance by definition. It's something that comes to you without your effort. Sometimes certain things a person could find a mitzvah or could invest in a very minimal manner, yet he could gain as a result tremendously more than he invested, and that is also naturally exciting. Yet ultimately he still had some investment. Let's say we gave the example last week, someone buys a lottery ticket and he wins that lottery. At least he put in an investment, he had some he concentrated on this, and to some degree less hope, more hope, but it was something that in many different levels he invested, again starting from the few coins that he put down in order to buy the lottery, and the time he invested, and again his mind and thinking and hoping and so on. And let's say he wins, obviously that's also a great unexpected win, which causes a great and unexpected or great excitement. Yet the Alter Rebbe's the lashon is Yerusha. Yerusha is even more than that. You didn't do anything for it. Lei amal ba. You didn't toil in it at all. You get this call or this notification that some great uncle or so passed away, and you're the inheritor, the only inheritor. You're an inheritor which is going to get this huge amount of money. So obviously you're sasu sameach. You rejoice and elate to this piece of news, and this is what we say. This is the Mayafi Yerushaseinu. Kain v'Yeser Mikain. So too in Kates. Even more than that. And how much more than that? Infinitely more than that, because you're dealing even the greatest amount of money. It's still a finite reality and a finite could do so good, so much good, even in Kedusha, again, in bringing more and more Kedusha to the world. So it obviously has this type of inherent good, inherent godly goodness, but we're dealing with the excitement of this large amount of money in comparison to the Simcha al Yerushaseinu, which we spoke about again, which Alter Rebbe is going to culminate this nekuda over here in the following few lines. But in other words, I'm just pointing out why in case, which means because even any great news, even a lot of money that the person receives as a Yerusha, in comparison to the source of all good, which is ultimately God Himself. There's no Kate, in Kate, it's infinitely greater that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was meidish us. He gave us the Yerusha of Him Himself, that we can perceive Achdus Hashem. This is the Yerusha. Achdus Hashem is independent if we perceive it or not, but the Yerusha is that we can perceive it. Hashem gave us the ability. He exposed Himself. He gave us a seichel, and He says, via your seichel, you can have a total appreciation of the Achdus Hashem, the way it's from my end, the way it is la mitase, the way it is true from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's perspective. Eined milvade, there's nothing else other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. From HaKadosh Baruch Hu's perspective, it's obviously so, but this is the Yerusha that Hashem gave us, the intellect, and gave us the ability to tap into this very reality of Achdus Hashem, literally to come not only face to face, to understand that everything is part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. ultimately coming face to face, or even more than face to face with Hashem, and even a deeper level of face to face. This is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This the Achdus Hashem. I could perfectly understand it. I could appreciate it, adequately appreciate it, the way it is Milmaila Lamata. In other words, the true notion of Egnan Mavadi could enter in my mind as a human being. And if it's in my mind, I have it with clarity in my mind. It produces feelings to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Ava V'yira, and it lifts up the whole entire spirit in a way that all the different challenges and obstacles that come my way are completely annulled. For example, somebody is struggling to find through a room. He has to get to the other side, and or he has to find certain things. He has to do certain things in his room, and it's pitch dark. And every second he's bumping into something else, and he has to make it through this part and that part. And then someone comes with a projector, just opens the light for him, and the huge light. It's not that it became less of a problem to come across the room. In no time, it lifts the person to a state, or it allows him to cross the room and to find anything and do anything that he has to do in that room without any, and all these obstacles disappear at once. And this is what he's saying, that ultimately it brings such simcha that every challenge which we have in our Avodas Hashem, it completely shuns, it obliterates, it melts away, because we get this perspective, we put things in perspective, where we have this accurate perspective and an understanding of Hashem Echad. We could feel, we could tap into that energy of Achdus Hashem the way it essentially is. And that's why they understand that in case it's not a lot of money, more money, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. So yesh lahem lismeach, how much more so that we have to rejoice al Yerusha Seinu, on this Yerusha, on this inheritance, Shin Chilot Aveseinu, which our forefathers inherited to us, which is again Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, is a pasuk in Torah. From Hashem's perspective, this obviously it is. But in Chilon Aviseinu, starting from Avraham Avinu, Yitzchak, Yaakov gave us the package of Hashem Echad. That's what their whole occupation was, to demonstrate to others, to themselves and to others, this notion of Hashem Echad, and they passed it on. And then it becomes a formal pasuk in Torah. Moshe kibul Torah misinai unesana leYeshua, and he gives it ultimately to every single yid. This is the Hinchilon Aviseinu, this Achdus Hashem, and again, eventually elaborated on and expanded on by every generation, every Godel of Moshe Rabbeinu, of that following and that subsequent generation, expands more on the Achdus Hashem in many, many different ways. If they needed to also show it to the people, if it was a miracle, or if it's something which introduced to them that it's not Hashem is distant and he's hovering over us, or he knows very much about us, but again, that he is in one domain, we are a separate entity in a different domain. No, every tzaddik, every Moshe Rabbeinu in his generation expanded on this idea of Achdus Hashem more and more. And as we come closer to the culmination of the purpose of creation, which is Yemei Mashiach, which then it will be the obvious, the Adaita, the Yedias Hashem, the knowledge of God and godliness will become the norm. As the Rambam says, this will be Eisek Kol Ha'olam Kuli, L'Dasas Hashem. For that matter, it's not only Yidden, it will be so obvious in the entire world, even people, even those who are non-Yidden. Again, what everybody's welcome to look in the end, the last few halachas of the Rambam. He said this will be the obvious, and it'll be like the Rambam himself says, Mol ha'oretz deyas Hashem kamayim liyom mechasen. The whole entire earth land will be full of the knowledge of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And as a pasuk in Yeshaya, again, many pasuk in Yeshaya demonstrate this very idea that the Achdus Hashem will be the norm. This notion of appreciation, adequate appreciation, in this oneness of Hashem, the accurate knowledge, or in this in Achdus Hashem, and this message of the oneness of Hashem. And again, not only on the Shabbos we'll see it, as the pasuk says, we mention this from time to time. This very pasuk, it says, "V'ro kol basar yachdiv," even the physical flesh will have re'iyah and elokus, will have vision and godliness. Or ki ayin bi'ayin yiru, the physical eye will be able to see Hashem Echad. But this is the culmination, the consummation of all which began at the time of Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and then namely at Yetzias Mitzrayim, leading us more and more of the Yichud, of Beirei and Nivra, the Hashem and His creation, primarily the Yid. yichud in a way that the Yid could appreciate, have a clear sensation of the Hashem Echad. So it started all the way then from Rav Mitzvah Yaakov, and again, Hinchilon Aviseinu. And we would definitely add, you're dealing with those who stretched it more and more. We're coming up to Rav Lag Ba'omer. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai was the one who opened up more and more deeper windows of this notion of Hashem Echad, as you learn in Sefer HaZeir. Now, they're both Torah, the same Torah Echas L'Kulonu, Shnai Michzim Batalis, and the Sefer HaZeir is one Torah given by Hashem Echad. But the sensation of Hashem Echad comes through Dafka Pnimis HaTorah. And Pnimis HaTorah is Megala, reveals what Shnai Michzim Batalis really is, that this is the Eibishter himself. As the Gemara says, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, Nafshi Ksavis Yavos, I gave myself into Torah. The habit of appreciation is one learns Pnimis HaTorah, so that in the Gufa Deiraisa he feels the Neshama Deiraisa, but Neshama Deiraisa is the Neshama which reveals more and more of this notion of Achdus Hashem. And again later, the Arizal, which came and says Mitzvah Legal Mutter, Mitzvah Legal Seisachachma, now became more permissible, because originally it was not. It was only Rav Shimon B'Chaveira, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai and his friends. You see, most of the Tanaim and Amoraim were not exposed to this which Rav Shimon was exposed, but eventually later, as we get closer to Yemei Mashiach, this becomes more and more, which again, the Yid, the ultimate objective, or the ultimate promise of Yemei Mashiach, that we will ayin b'ayin yiru, that our physical eyes will be able to see Elokus, godliness, or V'ro kol basar yachtov, that it will be experienced to us as we are Neshama b'guf, nefesh, dama basar, flesh and blood. So as we get closer to that time of the Messianic era, the Yemei Mashiach, more and more begins to be exposed to Am Yisrael. So in Chilon Aviseinu, when it comes to that easily, he said now at this time it's already mutter. And not only it's mutter, which gives us maybe a choice, yes, to tap into it, not to tap into it, the Arizal would precisely said not only mutter, nor in his precise saying, not only mutter, but mitzvah legalis yesachachma. It's a mitzvah to reveal this chachma. And then the Gdei Yisrael, subsequently, the Gdei Yisrael, which came subsequently. And the chance yesterday in a quick lesson we mentioned the Gra, Vilna Gaon writes the essentiality of learning Pnimis HaTorah and how it ultimately leads, and this in itself brings to the Geula, as it says, B'hai Sefer Dilach Yifkum Berachme, B'Galus Berachme, which was said in Sefer HaZeir, that it's with this Sefer that Yidden will ultimately leave the Galus with mercy. So this becomes not only mutter, a heter, but mitzvah, to invest our minds in Pnimis HaTorah, as it came across with the starting from starting from the Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, later the other Mekubalim, but that Arizal was an icon naturally in the Hizgalus revelation, opening up more and more the window of Pnimis HaTorah, and later the Baal Shem Tov Talmidav. And as we mentioned last week, the Maila of Chassidus Chabad is that it's not just verklach or tapping into things which remain abstract. This is what the Alter Rebbe has managed to do in his thousands of discourses, and the subsequent Rabbeim as well, precisely in this very style of thousands and thousands of discourses, of to take these ideas and to make it real and tangible to the Chabad, to our cognitive faculties, to our wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, that we should be able to appreciate it and understand it, just like we understand anything else, or even in Teres Hashem or anything else, where we understand in things that are around us. We don't just take things as belief. I don't believe my computer knows to do this or that. We have an adequate and accurate appreciation of what this computer, what it does, and so on and so forth. The idea, what the Alter Rebbe, the revolutionary, the cutting edge, or the revolutionary presentations of the Alter Rebbe, starting with Sefer HaTanya, is that it should enter, once it enters into our cognitive faculties, then it becomes part of us. It doesn't remain something which is aloof, abstract, and transcendent. And then it's not really, we can't live with something which remains transcendent. You could tap into it and increase our emunah, but it doesn't become chayenu, it doesn't become something that we can experience and have true simcha. We could say, I'm a Yid, which is sameach b'Hashem. I could say it, I could put a badge on it, tell people that I am, but am I? A Yid which is sameach b'Hashem. I'm a Yid that has true ava. I know that I have other things, ava too. And this I don't have to convince other people or convince myself, because I'm driven to it. And if it's not good, I have to stop. Whatever I'm driven to something which is inappropriate, I have to put a halt on that. Do I have that same drive to godliness? not a badge. Avos Hashem, Yiras Hashem. Oh, he's a Yiras Shamayim. Is he Yiras Shamayim? B'chadri Chadorim. Is he a Yiras Shamayim? Maybe he is. But the question is, one has to ask himself: do I have true Avos Hashem? There's a pasuk in Torah that says, "V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha." You have to love Hakadosh Baruch Hu. And love, you can't command on love. So or you love or you don't. So the Torah says, the word before, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Have an adequate appreciation of the Achdus Hashem. Consequently, V'ahavta, a real and true V'ahavta. Or similarly, V'yoresa, Hashem Elokecha, Hashem Elokecha Tira. To fear God. It's not just I am a Yiras Shamayim. Do I have a fear, a true fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Or maybe I'm fearing a punishment, or I'm fearing a consequence. Do I have fear of HaKadosh? Do I have a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? This is what the pasuk says. Before V'ahavta, the pasuk says, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. So the Hashem Echad, we have to have an adequate and true appreciation of Hashem Echad in order there should be V'ahavta. This is one of the new, very new, and again, cutting edge type of revelation or revolution of the Alter Rebbe, starting with his Chassidus, and again primarily the Sefer Tanya, which is known among Chassidim. It was called Torah Shebiksav, Torah Chassidus, which is again allowing us to appreciate the Achdus Hashem like we understand anything else. And if a person does, inevitably it will ignite a true, genuine Avos Hashem. He will be driven to godliness as he stands as a Basar V'Adam, as a man of flesh and blood. He can be driven, a physical person can be truly driven with true love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and wanting to be intimate with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But that, and similar when it comes to Yiras Hashem or any other ways we express our emotionally express our connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is what the Alter Rebbe gave us. This is part of the Inchiloni Aviseinu. I would add, not only from Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov and Moshe and Aaron and David and Shlomo and all the tzaddikim, Yeshua and all the tzaddikim in every generation, particularly reading Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, the Arizal, and the Alter Rebbe is very Tanya, again explaining to us that we can, as Anashim Basar V'Adam, as we prepare ourselves to Yemei Mashiach, when it's going to be V'ro Kol Basar Yachdav Ki Ayin Be'ayin B'yirut, we'll have some clarity, or great clarity in the reality of our Creator. Even though I say great because the Rebbe himself, Kifi Kecha Adam, how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to want to expose himself to us, but even there's Da'aleh, there's infinity. He can expose himself more and more to the person, or the person can have a clearer appreciation every day in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in every step of the game. There's no end, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there is no end. He's Ein Sof, He's infinite. But this is the you. This is what we're leading to. This is what Yemei Mashiach is all about. And this is Achana. That this notion of Yichud Hashem Ha'amiti, that afilu ba'aretz mitachas eined milvadei. Again, this is what the Alter Rebbe, this is Yerusha, which the Alter Rebbe culminates over here when we explained the last few weeks, namely elaborated on. Again, becomes the message of Perek Lamed Gimel, that even ba'aretz mitachas eined milvadei, in this physical world, there isn't anything other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And as we mentioned last week, that this has nothing to do with where the person is. He could be in a Jewish neighborhood, non-Jewish neighborhood. He could be in across the globe. And this is all. It's because the Olam is not a separate entity. To say Hashem is there, maybe Hashem doesn't want to be there for now, and He's not so much there that He is in a Jewish neighborhood or in my shul. It's Eined Milvadi. This is all part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Keil Olam. The Olam itself is part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is Pshat Eined Milvadi. Even Ba'aretz Mitachas. Not only in the Olam Misulyein, in Gan Eden, in Gan Eli, in Gan Atach, in Olam Haba, in this very physical world, Eined Milvadi. There's nothing else than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is Dira B'Tachteinu. And again, we're not going to take some time to elaborate because we're going to go on with the text, but this we did this in this very last class. Dira B'Tachteinu. This is why the HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. As it says in Parshas Nasi, Tanchuma, Nisava HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lislei Dira B'Tachteinu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu desired to want to have a home in this very physical world. So, what does it mean? When we live in this physical world, the Neshama comes down to this physical world and learns Torah and does mitzvahs, as we mentioned many times, again in the last few classes as well, that this is what mitzvahs are all about. We take the physical, we transform them to the spiritual. We say this is not just a parchment of an animal, this becomes tefillin, for a parsha of tefillin. It's not only parsha of an animal becomes the holiest object of all, which is the Sefer Torah. It's not only wool of a sheep, it becomes tzitzis, and so on and so forth, which is a significant majority of our mitzvahs are dealing with, not that we don't isolate ourselves from the physical world, but we deal with the physical world, and we elevate the physical world and make this is pshat, make a dira b'tachtein, not b'eliyeinim and elam haba, but b'tachtein in this physical world. For we take the physical world, we deal with the physical world, as we mentioned, elaborated by extension, kol masech l'shem shamayim, chol d'rachach, which is another shlab, another level, that it's not darkei shamayim, it's not ma'aseh shamayim, it's my ways, but I do it for the godly sake. D'rachecha, it's your ways, da'ahiu, you know God in all the other details of the day, even though something with things which are not overtly connected to Torah mitzvahs. My eating, my drinking, as the Rambam in Hilchos Deis says that a person serves a Kodesh Baruch should and ought to serve a Kodesh Baruch 24 hours a day, because the point is that everything, the whole tachting, the whole world should become an abode for a Kodesh Baruch. So it's not only by doing mitzvahs or taking the physical, but ultimately becoming a Chefetz Shel Kedusha, a godly and holy object, but more so, Kol Masecha, Hashem Shamayim, Kol D'Rachecha, your ways do you know. With this, we go deeper in the Tachtain and we make it part of the Dira, the home for Hashem. But this is in our conduct, but the knowledge the Alter Rebbe is getting over here, this Dira V'Tachtainim before that, or together with that. Primarily it's Dira V'Tachtainim having the recognition of the Eined Milvade, of the godly reality as we live and well anchored in Tachtainim in this physical world. It's not only Baris Mitachas somewhere down, it's in my world, the way I'm connected to the Eretz, to the Artzis of Eilam. Even there I know Eined Milvade. The fact that a human being which is driven and has the inclinations, anything, the human attractions, human inclinations, the bodily attractions and inclinations, many time animalistic. We're inclined to the animalistic because we have a nefesh bahamis, and together with that, we can stop and ponder and have clarity in the message of Hashem Echad. Not only Hashem Echad, scream loud, shock loud, literally the message of Hashem Echad to penetrate my physical mind, then becomes tangible and palpable to me. That I could have, oh, wow, and this is all real. Becomes real like I see the table in front of me. You can have an appreciation of seeing God in that fashion, and you're Tachtainim, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're connecting with this Almighty. As you have you're standing in Tachtainim, in this physical world, the neshama invested in a body, without all the bodily realities. Yet you can have a clarity in the Hashem Echad. That's Dira B'Tachtainim. Clarity in the oneness of Hashem. Not just saying it, screaming it, having true clarity of it. That is Dira B'Tachtainim. So we go on. 613 with mitzvahs were given to Yidden. The Gemara tells us, Bo Chavakuk, our sages of blessed memory, again brought down in the Gemara, that 613 mitzvahs were given to Yidden. Bo Chavakuk v'midin alachas. The Novi Chavakuk took the 613 mitzvahs and encapsulated them and pointed out that in essence it's one mitzvah. He pointed out he saw the central theme about all mitzvahs, and he said, you know what all mitzvahs are really all about? V'tzadik b'emunos yichya. It's about believing and living with the emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, obviously, Chavakuk, which was a great Navi, would not say, just believe, do whatever you want, chas v'shalom. We need not even to negate something so silly, something so absurd rather, to think that this is what he meant. Take all the mitzvahs, amidan alachas, I'll just believe, chas v'shalom. The idea what he was mentioning it is, he says, get the central point. You know what the central point of all, the central nakuda, the central point of all mitzvahs is? The emunah of Hashem. Meaning to say, what he was basically telling us, not only that every mitzvah is another layer of the emunah, the connection of the belief, and the connection of Yitzhak HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What he was basically saying is that once you have the emunah, once you're able to tap in to this Hashem Echad, and Hashem Echad, in other words, that oneness of Hashem becomes real and tangible to you, consequently all the mitzvahs, you'll be able to do all the mitzvahs so lightly, joyfully and passionately. Like we said before, you're in a dark room and you're doing all the stuff you have to do. You're moving and you're coming and you're turning and you're coming through and you're walking through and you're accomplishing everything. But it's with amuchin issues, with effort. And then all of a sudden someone finds the switch It opens up this beautiful, grand light. So you're not only doing the same things you're doing before, just a little better with a little more excitement. It's be'ein hareich. There is no comparison. You just come out of the box and you're doing things with greater, so much more enthusiasm. And this is what the Chavakuk would say. Have that clarity and that emunah. Yichye. This will revitalize your whole relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So obviously there's different explanations with Tzaddik B'Manasseh Yichye, with his emunah he does live, with the emunah, but Alter Rebbe teaches over here that the righteous be'emunasseh, with your having clarity in that emunah, and in this case and tapping into that Hashem Echad, then Yichye, again with clarity and adequate appreciation to that Hashem Echad Yichye, that would revitalize at once your whole connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And your whole perform the way it ought to be manifest and express itself via doing mitzvahs. All those obstacles will fall away because they become no more. They become no more obstacles for you because you understand that ba'aretz mitachas ein eid. There isn't anything else. There isn't anything else other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As if there is only one mitzvah, emunah levada, which is solely the faith. And what is this going to accomplish? Because through solely this faith, a person it will lead him to the fulfillment of all the 613 mitzvahs. This is what Chavakuk said. This is what he meant. That tzaddik b'emunasseh, the emunah, this one mitzvah emunah, yichye, will revitalize and give so much, re-resurrect the entire connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu via my kiyum mitzvahs, will revitalize my performance of kiyum mitzvahs. Dahainu, k'sheyiyeh li beisas v'sameach, that when his heart will rejoice and elate with this emunah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and again emunah, as he says, in bemunaseh, in his faith, be yichud Hashem, in the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, betachlis, and he'll have this adequate emunah, adequate hands-on, this oneness of Hashem. Betachlis hasimcha, with the ultimate joy. As if he didn't have any other mitzvah. Chavakuk is telling us, then skip over here, not and this would be the ultimate purpose of his creation and the creation of all worlds, again based on what it says in Medrash Tanchuvah, and this is Chidira B'Tachtenim, as we mentioned. In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted a Dira B'Tachtenim, a dwelling place. Translate the Dira B'Tachtenim, we mentioned this many times, a Dira, a dwelling place, an abode in this physical world. And this is Dira B'Tachtenim, that even I'm a part of this Tachtin, I could tune into, and this could become real. This notion of Hashem Echad, to the way the Eined Milvadi, the way Hashem looks at the Eined, the way it's Milmaila Lamata, I can tap into it Milmata Lamaila, that the way it is not only from Hashem's perspective, here's the Eined Milvadi, this message of Eined Milvadi, nothing else than Hashem, from Hashem's perspective, and that becomes my perspective. And again, to me it's Milmata Lamaila, from the Tachtin. I was created with a Neshama, and with a Guf, and a Nefesh Bahamis, a body and an animal soul. So I am standing in the mat, and I am able to elevate myself l'mayla to have clarity in this Hashem Echad, in this Eined Milvadi, and this becomes a Dira B'Tachtenim. This is the idea, as we mentioned. This is Dira B'Tachtenim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu feels comfortable. He feels that he is here in this very physical world, in our conscious mind, in our excitement, in how this becomes our excitement and sensation. This is Dira B'Tachtenim, and as it says Medrash Tanchuma, this is the reason HaKadosh Baruch Hu created all the elements, everything. And he created this Salem, and he created me. So I'm fulfilling my purpose of my purpose of creation, which is making HaKadosh Baruch Hu Dira B'Tachtenim, which becomes via this emunah and this yichud Hashem, this faith in the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as Chavakuk points out, with the energy and the spirit and the passion of his soul, with his great joy, his soul will yank upwards, soar upwards, al kol hameinim kim kol ateirim mitzvahs, on everything which prevents the entire fulfillment of the 613 mitzvahs, mi bayis or mi bachutz, disturbances which comes within because of my laid backness or my taiva, or my drives, rather my animalistic drives, again, which disturb me from doing this which I'm not supposed to do, Rahman al-Islam. Or telling me to do things, driving me to do in areas which I'm not supposed to do, or think or speak things which I'm not supposed to, or when it comes to me to say, be laid back, the things which I am supposed to do. This is me bias. These are the disturbances, the challenges and obstacles we have within. Or mi bachutz, and things which come from out, and even outside, mean to say, mockery of other people, like it says, al yevish pnei maligim, because there are maligim. Person starts doing what he has to do, and he comes to minyan time, he davens like I mentioned, he learns Torah, and people start mocking, and that itself can diffuse the passion, the energy which I'm trying to invest in my relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's meinim ma'akvim mi bachutz. That's challenges and obstacles from the outside. So this is what he says, yichya, that this will yank, like as we say, just open a light. It's not this person is able to do a little better in that dark room, or in the room more than the previous experience when things were dark, but it becomes the light opens up, it's a total new reality. In this case, through this mitzvah of having Hashem Echad, the Emunah and Hashem Echad, and having this adequate appreciation of Hashem Echad, and comprehension of Hashem Echad, that yanks me and my nefesh to stand and to soar on high, and to stand over and triumph over all this which wants to challenge and prevent me of fulfilling my 630 mitzvahs, mi ba'is machutz, from inward challenges and outward challenges. Zeu sha'omar. You know what? I believe perhaps we'll stop over here. And as Hashem will continue, he speaks about again Yichya, the precise expression of Yichya, which is mamish. So we use the word also not only revitalizes, but it resurrects our whole connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu the way it ought to be manifest in all these different levels of our Torah, Aveda, Gemilas Chasadim, and so on and so forth. As we'll look forward learning about this coming week. Have a great evening.